Echoes in the arena. The arena pulsed with a nervous energy, a tangible thing you could taste in the air, thick with the scent of stale beer, cigar smoke, and anticipation. Spotlights wheeled across the crowd, catching glints of gold jewelry and the expectant faces of thousands packed into the stands. Ushers in crimson jackets navigated the throng, their voices hoarse from repeating seat numbers. Hawkers wove through the aisles, their cries a rhythmic drone. Programs! Get your programs! Who's gonna win, folks? Place your bets! The air crackled with the promise of violence, the spectacle of two men pushing themselves to the very edge of physical endurance. Tonight was more than just a fight. It was an event, a happening, a collision of egos and athletic prowess. In the relative quiet of his locker room, Muhammad Ali moved with a focused grace, a stark contrast to the chaotic energy outside. His corner men, Bundini Brown and Angelo Dundee, hovered around him, offering last-minute advice and encouragement. Angelo taped his hands, wrapping the gauze with practiced precision, his brow furrowed in concentration. Bundini chanted softly, a litany of affirmations and rhymes, his voice a low hum that vibrated in the small space. Ali shadowboxed, his feet dancing lightly on the canvas floor. Each punch was a blur of motion, a testament to years of training and dedication. He wasn't just throwing punches, he was painting a picture, a masterpiece of footwork and timing. He mumbled to himself. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. He paused, catching his reflection in the mirror. His eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, were now hard and focused. He saw not just his own image, but the weight of expectation, the hopes and dreams of a nation, reflected back at him. Suddenly, a sound pierced the pre-fight calm, a shrill, insistent cry that cut through the muffled roar of the crowd. It was a baby, its wails echoing through the arena, a sound so out of place, so raw and vulnerable, that it momentarily silenced even Bundini's chanting. Ali froze, his fists still clenched. He frowned, his brow furrowing. What's that? He asked, his voice sharp. Just a baby, champ, Angelo said dismissively, not looking up from his work. Probably got dragged here against its will. Happens all the time. But Ali wasn't satisfied. The sound tugged at something within him, a chord of empathy that resonated deep in his soul. The crying grew louder, more distressed. Find out what's wrong, Ali said, his voice firm. See if they need anything. Bundini, ever the loyal confidant, nodded and slipped out of the locker room. A few moments later he returned, his face etched with concern. It's a little one, champ. Sick, they think. Got a fever. Parents are worried sick, trying to find a doctor. Without a word, Ali turned and strode towards the door. Angelo tried to stop him. Champ, the fight. You can't just go wandering around. Ali stopped, his eyes blazing. That baby needs help, Angelo. A fight can wait. A human being can't. He pushed past Angelo and headed out into the corridor, the sound of the baby's cries guiding him through the maze of hallways and backstage areas. The noise of the arena intensified as he got closer to the source of the commotion. He pushed past security, who looked at him with a mixture of awe and confusion, his entourage struggling to keep up. He found them near the concession stands, huddled together, the young parents frantic with worry. The baby, red-faced and feverish, clutched a worn blanket, its cries a desperate plea for relief. The crowd, normally boisterous and eager for a show, had formed a small circle around them, their faces a mixture of concern and helplessness. Ali knelt down beside them, his massive frame somehow managing to appear gentle and unassuming. He looked at the baby, his eyes filled with compassion. Let me see, he said softly, his voice a calming balm amidst the chaos. He gently touched the baby's forehead, feeling the heat radiating from its skin. He knew he wasn't a doctor, but he knew the power of presence, the strength of empathy. And in that moment, in the heart of the roaring arena, he was more than just a fighter. He was a human being, responding to the call of another in need. The echoes of the upcoming battle faded into the background, replaced by the quiet urgency of the situation at hand. Little Leo's tummy troubles. Leo was a forlorn little bundle, clutching his cherished blue blanket. The satin trim, frayed from years of anxious nibbling, framed a face streaked with tears. Each sob racked his small frame. "Mama," he croaked, his voice thick with distress. "My tummy aches." Elena Ramirez knelt, her hand a comforting weight on his dark, damp hair. "I know, sweetheart, I know. We'll soothe it." Her voice, usually a warm caress, now held a tremor of undisguised concern. She cast a worried glance at Miguel, who hovered in the doorway, his presence almost overwhelming the tiny apartment. "Maybe those empanadas at lunch?" he ventured, a crease forming between his brows. "They packed a bit of punch." Elena's look silenced him. "Spicy for a grown man, perhaps." Leo barely tasted them. "Besides, it's been hours." Leo whimpered anew, drawing the blanket around himself like a protective cocoon. His normally plump cheeks were ashen, his eyes swollen and red. Elena had pictured a completely different evening. Promised treats, the shimmering lights strung like jewels between the plaza's palm trees, the lively strains of the weekend mariachi band. Miguel had even managed to snag wrestling tickets, a rare extravagance, especially with Ali headlining. A family night, a celebration. Now, the arena seemed a distant world, an indulgence lost to her son's distress. "Chamomile tea is our best bet," Elena declared, rising. "Perhaps it will calm his stomach." She moved to the cramped kitchen, the familiar clatter of the kettle a small point of solace in the strained atmosphere. Soon, the herbal fragrance mingled with the faint antiseptic scent of the cleaning spray she'd used earlier. Miguel settled beside Leo, carefully navigating the scattered toys. His large hand gently stroked Leo's small back, a striking contrast in size and strength. "Hey, buddy," he murmured. "Remember the wrestlers? Huge guys, masks and muscles? Flying through the air like superheroes." Leo only burrowed deeper. "No wrestlers," he mumbled, voice muffled by the blanket. "Want the hurt to go away." Miguel's spirits plummeted. He'd longed to share his passion with Leo, to witness that spark of awe in his son's eyes. He'd even scrimped for weeks to afford decent seats. He looked to Elena, his eyes pleading for a solution she didn't possess. She returned, cradling a small cup, its steam dancing around her face. "Here, baby. Just a tiny bit." She knelt, coaxing him to drink. A cautious sip, then a wrinkled nose. "Yucky," he whispered, but swallowed nonetheless. "It's good for you," Elena insisted, her tone firm yet tender. "It will ease the ache." She offered the tea, a sip at a time, her gaze unwavering. Slowly, Leo seemed to ease. Whether it was the tea, or simply the warmth of his mother's unwavering presence, a subtle calm descended. The whimpers became less frequent, less intense. Elena met Miguel's gaze. A silent language passed between them, shared worry, unspoken fears, the unshakable love that formed the bedrock of their family. The wrestling match had faded into insignificance. The plaza's twinkling lights could wait. Only one thing mattered, bringing comfort to their little boy. A champion's focus. The arena's gut vibrated with a low-frequency hum, a mechanical pulse that usually lulled Ali into a state of calm. Tonight it chafed, an off-key drone. He perched on the training table's edge, eyes shut, summoning his opponent's visage. A sweating whirlwind, a phantom dance, the steel resolve mirrored on his own face by the harsh ring lights. Jab. Sway. Parry. The pattern lived within him, yet a persistent sound needled its way in, a child's lament. He fought to shut it out. Legends concentrated. Champions walled themselves off from distraction. He painted the arena's din in his mind, camera flashes like predatory eyes, the satisfying thud of glove on flesh. His mantra played on repeat. Float like a butterfly. But the infant's cries, raw and piercing, sliced through his mental shield. Not a mere whimper, this, a lungs-full bellow, punctuated by ragged breaths. It clawed at his resolve, a miniature siege against the fortress of his focus. He squeezed his lids tighter, willing the sound to become ambient noise swallowed by the generator's growl. He saw the rising fist, a spectral blow aimed at his chin. He tilted back, evading it in his mind's eye, but the baby's keening intensified, twisting into a desperate supplication. Leo. The child's name surfaced. He remembered the distraught parents, the ashen face, the fragile form cocooned in blue. He recalled the comforting weight of the talisman in his hand, the fleeting, hopeful smile it had coaxed from Leo's lips. Damn! Ollie breathed, snapping his eyes open. Angelo Dundee, his mentor, cast a glance, brow creased with concern. Something wrong, champ? Just a little off, Ollie replied, striving for composure. Angelo wouldn't fathom it. This wasn't the usual stage fright. This was something deeper, more fundamental. He shut his eyes once more, attempting to reignite the pre-bout fire, but the wails were relentless now, echoing in the vast enclosure, amplifying the guilt that burrowed within him. Should he ignore it? Was his concentration so inviolate that he could block out a child's agony? He conjured Leo's face again, flushed and tear-streaked, saw the raw anxiety etched on the parents' faces. He felt the tidal wave of helplessness that had crashed over him, the fragile wish that the little charm might offer solace. His conscience wrestled. This was the pinnacle. Everything sacrificed, every bead of sweat shed, culminated in this moment. He couldn't surrender his advantage. But how could he remain deaf to such profound suffering? Angelo began rapping his hands, the crisp rip of tape a rhythmic counterpoint to the baby's cries. Ollie tried to lock onto the familiar cadence, the binding pressure, the caress of leather against his skin. But the image of Leo, small and exposed, wouldn't dissipate. He sprang to his feet. Be right back, he told Angelo, his voice strained. Champ, stay in the zone. It's almost showtime. Ollie disregarded him, heading for the exit. He had to know Leo was okay. He had to act. Champion's focus be damned, some things took precedence. The crowd's adulation would have to wait. Breaking the ranks. Angelo's experienced hands, rough with years of training fighters, swiftly layered gauze around Ollie's knuckles. Concentrate, champ. Tonight. Don't let anything get to you. He cinched the wrap, a silent warning etched in the tightening. Hear me? Ollie nodded absently, attention elsewhere. A thin, keening sound pierced the locker room's pre-fight rumble. A baby's cry, laced with unmistakable distress. Angelo, what is that? Angelo grunted, eyes fixed on his work. Crowd's edgy. Probably brought their kids. Ignore it. You have a title to win. But Ollie couldn't dismiss it. The sound persisted, an urgent, delicate thread pulling at his empathy. It wasn't mere background noise, it was an appeal. It sounds sick. Like it's really hurting. Ollie shifted, his shoes whispering against the linoleum, each squeak echoing the unease rising within him. Angelo paused, brow furrowed in annoyance. Ollie, you know the routine. Blinders on. Shut it all out. This isn't a tea party, this is for everything. You think Liston didn't pull stunts? It's part of their game. Don't bite. I know, Angelo, but... He hesitated, caught between loyalty and the insistent tug in his gut. Just, let me see. Just a minute. Angelo slammed his fist against the cool metal of a locker. No. That's what they crave. To unnerve you, to crawl into your head. You think Liston didn't try every dirty tactic? It's part of the game. Don't fall for it. Ollie met his trainer's gaze, seeing raw worry there. Angelo had stood by him, believed when belief was scarce. But tonight, he was mistaken. This wasn't a ruse. This was a child in pain. I have to, Angelo, Ollie said softly, his voice resolute despite the tremor in his hands. He gently freed his hands and rose. The loose gauze hung from his knuckles like a forgotten promise. Angelo's face hardened into a mask of frustration and anxiety. You'll regret this, Ollie. You're abandoning our plan. I feel it in my bones. Ollie paid him no mind, his awareness already drawn to the source of the sound. He headed for the door, each step measured, each creak of the floor a percussive beat against his growing concern. The hallway pulsed with chaos, reporters elbowing for space, security guards barking directions, camp followers angling for attention. Ali moved through them, his imposing frame parting the throng like a bow cleaving through waves. The crying amplified, a jarring counterpoint to the hubbub of shouts and laughter. He followed the sound, shouldering past photographers bickering about lighting angles. The air thickened, heavy with sweat and rising tension. He could feel the crowd's energy, an electric charge humming through the floor. Finally, he located them. At the edge of the arena, near a concession stand, a young couple struggled to comfort their infant. The baby's face, scarlet and wet with tears, reflected a profound distress. Small fists clenched, the tiny body shuddered with each sob. The parents looked panicked, their features etched with worry. Ali halted, his heart clenching. This wasn't a distraction, this was a small tragedy unfolding. And he couldn't simply stand by. He had to intervene. A moment of kindness. The air thrummed with a nervous energy, a tangible buzz that usually fueled him. Tonight, however, it felt different. He had been visualizing the punches, the footwork, the roar of the crowd. But the distant, plaintive cries tugged at him, a dissonant chord in his carefully constructed symphony of focus. He followed the sound, not because he had to, but because he couldn't ignore it. He found them huddled near the edge of the training area, bathed in the stark fluorescent light of a single overworked bulb. A young couple, their faces etched with worry, were trying to comfort a baby who wailed inconsolably, tiny fists clenched tight. The little one's face was flushed, tears streaming down his chubby cheeks like miniature rivers. Ali knelt beside them, his large frame somehow shrinking to fit the space. He moved with a surprising gentleness, his presence radiating a calming warmth. The sharp scent of liniment and sweat clinging to him seemed to dissipate, replaced by a softer aura of concern. "Little man's not feeling too good, huh?" Ali asked, his voice a low rumble, careful not to startle the already distressed child. The woman, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen, looked up at him, surprised. "No, sir," she said, her voice thick with exhaustion. "He's been like this for hours. We think it's his tummy." She shifted the baby, Leo, in her arms, trying to find a more comfortable position, but he only cried harder, a thin, reedy sound that pierced the heart. The man, Miguel, ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. "We tried everything. Gas drops, rocking him, everything. Nothing works." He looked defeated, his shoulders slumped with helplessness. He glanced up at Ali, his eyes filled with desperate hope and skepticism. Ali reached out a hand, not to touch the baby directly, but to hover near him, as if testing the waters. "Tummy trouble, huh? Sometimes those little bellies just get all twisted up." He remembered his own childhood illnesses, the fear and discomfort, the longing for someone to just make it stop. Elena, Leo's mother, bit her lip, her eyes darting from the baby to Ali. "He's been constipated for days, and now it's just, everything's coming up." She dabbed at Leo's mouth with a small, stained cloth. The gesture was automatic, weary. "Poor little fella," Ali murmured. He noticed the way Elena held Leo, her grip tight but tender, the way Miguel's hand rested protectively on her shoulder. The weariness in their faces spoke volumes. He thought of his own children, and the countless nights he and Belinda had spent soothing fevers and comforting nightmares. He looked directly at Elena. "Has he seen a doctor?" "We don't have insurance," Miguel admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "We were hoping it would pass. We didn't know what else to do, we needed to be here. This was our chance." Ali understood, though he didn't know what chance Miguel was referring to. He simply nodded, his gaze softening with understanding. "Sometimes," he said softly, "a little kindness is the best medicine." He paused, then reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, smooth stone. It was a milky white color, veined with threads of gray. He'd carried it since he was a boy. "This," he said, holding it out to Elena, "is a worry stone. My mama gave it to me. When you're scared or worried, you rub it. It helps you remember that you're strong, that everything's gonna be alright." Elena hesitated, then gently took the stone. It was warm from his pocket, surprisingly solid in her hand. She looked at it, then back at Ollie, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. She rubbed her thumb across its smooth surface. A flicker of quiet passed over Leo's face. He was still crying, but the shrillness had faded, replaced by a whimpering sound. Ollie watched, his gaze intent, a faint smile playing on his lips. Perhaps, he thought, a moment of calm could be found even in the midst of the storm. Perhaps, even a boxer could bring a little peace. The bravery stone. The air in the makeshift medical room, usually buzzing with the nervous energy of cornermen and hopefuls, was thick with a different kind of tension. It smelled faintly of rubbing alcohol and fear. Elena Ramirez rocked back and forth, her face slick with a mixture of tears and sweat. Little Leo, usually a bundle of playful energy, lay limp in her arms, his breathing shallow and ragged. Ollie knelt beside them, his large frame somehow managing to seem unobtrusive. He hadn't said much, only offered a silent presence, a grounding force in the swirling panic. Now, he reached into the pocket of his silk robe. The fabric whispered as he withdrew his hand, palm closed around something small. He opened his hand, revealing a smooth, gray stone. It wasn't particularly remarkable to look at, just a river stone worn smooth by time and water. But to Ollie, it was much more. He held it out to Elena. "This," he said, his voice low and soothing, a stark contrast to the booming pronouncements he made in the ring, "is my bravery stone." Elena looked at it, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. She didn't reach for it. "I've carried it with me for a long time," Ollie continued. "Before every fight, whenever I felt those jitters, you know? The kind that make your stomach twist and your hands sweat. I'd hold this stone, and it would chase away the bad feelings." He paused, letting the silence settle. Leo whimpered, a tiny, heartbreaking sound. "It doesn't magically make everything better," Ollie admitted, his gaze fixed on the baby. "But it reminds you that you're strong. That you can handle whatever comes. It's a little piece of calm in the middle of the storm." He extended his hand further, the stone resting in his palm. "I want you to have it, Elena. For Leo." Elena hesitated, her fingers trembling as she reached out and took the stone. It was cool and smooth against her skin. She closed her fingers around it, a tight, desperate grip. It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's just a stone," Ollie said gently. "But it carries good intentions. Hold it tight. Imagine all the strength and love you have for Leo flowing into it. Let it remind you that you're doing everything you can." He watched as Elena clutched the stone to her chest, her eyes fixed on Leo. The doctor was still examining the baby, his brow furrowed in concentration. The air remained heavy, but something had shifted. A tiny seed of hope, perhaps, planted by a simple stone and a champion's quiet act of kindness. Ollie remained kneeling, a silent guardian, until the doctor finally straightened up, a small smile gracing his lips. He spoke to Elena in hushed tones, explaining the diagnosis, the treatment. The fear in her eyes slowly began to recede, replaced by a fragile sense of relief. As the doctor tended to Leo, Ollie rose to his feet. He didn't say goodbye, didn't need to. He simply nodded to Elena, a silent acknowledgement of the shared moment, the unspoken understanding. He turned and walked away, back towards the roar of the crowd, the blinding lights, the impending fight. But he left a piece of himself behind, a small, gray stone carrying the weight of his hope, his strength, and his unwavering belief in the power of human connection. A glimmer of hope. The keening wail that had ripped through Elena's soul cracked, stuttered, and then ceased. Leo, his face still damp with the residue of tears and high color, settled in her embrace. The tense set of his small frame seemed to ease, a shift so subtle she almost questioned it. She held her breath, unwilling to risk disturbing this fragile moment of calm. His unfocused stare had sharpened, now riveted on the smooth, gray stone Ollie presented. A subtle warmth radiated from it, a pulse she could almost discern at this distance. Leo's tiny fist, clenched so tightly his knuckles gleamed white, gradually relaxed. He reached, not with a frantic lunge, but a measured extension, reverent as if seeking a fallen star. His fingers, still quivering faintly, grazed Ali's palm. Ali didn't recoil, didn't withdraw. He simply offered the stone, his dark eyes brimming with a deep, compassionate light. Elena watched, spellbound, as Leo's small hand closed around the cool surface. He drew the stone close, cradling it against his chest, his ragged breathing slowly regulating with each passing second. And then, a smile blossomed. Small, shy, a mere ghost of an expression at the curve of his mouth, but undeniably a smile. A dawn breaking after unbearable darkness. The first green shoot pushing through frozen earth. It was everything renewed. Elena's eyes flooded again, this time with a profound sense of deliverance. She gently pushed a stray lock from Leo's brow, her hand trembling slightly. "Gracias," she breathed, her voice thick with gratitude. "Thank you?" The murmur of the throng had dissolved into utter stillness. Every gaze was fixed on Leo, on Ali, on the unassuming stone nestled against the child's fragile chest. The air vibrated with an odd resonance, a tangible feeling of hope where despair had held dominion moments before. Even the relentless camera flashes seemed to soften, the strobes less intrusive, almost gentle. Ali remained kneeling, his focus unwavering. He offered no words, made no move. He simply remained present, a silent bulwark against the tempest that had threatened to consume them. The very air hummed with a hushed expectancy. The world seemed suspended. The arena had transformed from a venue of brutal contests and raucous spectacle into something else entirely. For this singular, precious moment, it was a haven. A place where, even amidst fear and uncertainty, a spark of possibility could ignite. Back to the ring. Leo's hiccup dissolved into a soft, wet burble. Ali, attempting to coax a smile, puffed his cheeks, crossed his eyes, and jiggled his fingers before the infant's face. Elena Ramirez, Leo's mother, offered a wan smile through her tears. "Gracias, señor. Not a peep of happiness all day. Tough little cookie," Ali murmured, his large hand dwarfing Leo's. The baby's tiny fingers latched onto his with surprising force. "Just needed someone in his corner." He gazed into Leo's still and focused gaze. "You'll be fine, little fella. Dancing shoes before you know it." An unexpected wave of understanding resonated within him. It wasn't solely the roar of the arena, the camera flashes, the heft of the gloves. It was this, a shared thread of humanity, a silent communion amidst the clamor. "Ali!" Angelo's voice, edged with a sharp urgency, cut through the quiet. He stood a few feet away, worry creasing his forehead. "What are you doing out here? Rounds to spar, hands to tape. This isn't a social call." He jerked his head toward the locker room. "Let's go, champ, time's a-wasting." With a gentle squeeze to Elena's shoulder, Ali said, "He'll be okay. Just needs some love." He straightened, a renewed lightness to his gait, and faced Angelo. "All right, Ange. Let's rumble." The corridor back to the locker room felt different. The crowd's vibrant energy, typically his rocket fuel, seemed a distant murmur. The sheen on his forehead wasn't merely from exertion, it was a consequence of the world's weight, newly perceived and comprehended. The pungent aroma of liniment and stale sweat assaulted his senses as he stepped inside. The locker room, normally a cauldron of nervous anticipation, seemed subdued. Bandini Brown sat hunched over a chessboard in the corner, muttering strategy. Drew, his sparring partner, went through the motions of shadowboxing mid-ring, his energy noticeably diminished. Angelo, already arranging gauze and tape, appeared relieved at his arrival. "Finally! I was about to send out a search party." Ali settled onto the stool, the cool, worn leather a welcome sensation. He closed his eyes, picturing Leo's face, the ephemeral smile, that desperate little grip. Angelo began wrapping his hands, the familiar ritual anchoring him. "You okay, champ? You seem changed." Ali opened his eyes, a determined spark igniting within. "I'm better than okay, Ange. I finally know what I'm fighting for." He offered no further explanation, none was needed. The feeling resonated deep within, a font of purpose stronger than any anxiety or personal desire. Angelo paused in his task, his gaze searching Ali's. He'd seen that look before, that quiet ferocity. It signaled that Ali was locked in, laser-focused, ready to unleash hell. He resumed rapping, his movements becoming more rapid, more precise. Good. Now let's go out there and give them a night they won't forget. The tape tightened around his knuckles, an emblem of the conflict to come. But tonight, it transcended the boxing match, the championship, the accolades. It encompassed those small, vulnerable lives needing protection, those quiet moments of connection holding more significance than any triumph. It was about embodying a champion, not simply within the ring's confines, but in the broader world. And Ali was primed. Beyond the bell. The crowd's thunder vibrated through Ali, a palpable force as he stepped between the ropes. Tonight, though, the sound wasn't oppressive, it was invigorating, a surge he could channel. Dundee, in his corner, wore an expression of intense focus, yet a glint of paternal pride shone through. Ali's wink earned him a fleeting smile from his mentor. Across the ring stood his adversary, known for an unyielding chin and aggressive style, a coiled tension about him. But Ali saw not a threat, but a fellow craftsman, each there to ply their trade. A silent respect passed between them, an acknowledgement of their shared gladiator's stage. The bell's clang shattered the moment, and the contest began. Ali flowed with an unusual grace. He danced and swayed, his footwork a mesmerizing display. More than simple evasion, it was a vibrant painting of motion, controlled ferocity in rhythm. Lightness filled him, a release as though that earlier compassion had lifted an invisible burden. He absorbed the opening jabs, his shoulder roll a perfect shield, all the while dissecting his opponent's cadence. He detected the predictable patterns, the reliance on raw power. Then he countered. A crisp jab followed by a lightning right cross landed squarely, rocking the man's head. The arena exploded. Ali pressed, his punches now precise and potent, each with a clear intent. He witnessed the frustration bloom in his opponent's eyes, the stark realization that tonight he faced more than just skill. He was contending with a spirit charged with something deeper than simple ambition. Back in his corner, Angelo tended to him, his hands a blur of motion, his voice a comforting murmur. "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, champ! Keep it up! You're breaking him!" Ali nodded, breathing deeply and evenly. He already knew. He could feel the shift. The man was faltering, his resolve crumbling. But Ali craved more than just the win. He aimed to illustrate a point, a lesson that strength extended beyond muscle. It encompassed compassion, empathy, the capacity to connect, even amidst combat. As the rounds progressed, Ali could have finished it. He could have aimed for the knockout punch. Instead, he maintained his dance, his elusive weaving, exacerbating his opponent's frustration. He conducted a silent lesson, a sermon delivered through skillful hands and feet. In the 10th, the opponent's corner conceded. The crowd roared its approval, a tidal wave of sound. Ali raised his arms in triumph, but his gaze drifted past the celebrating faces, the cameras, the searing lights. His thoughts drifted to the infant, to Leo, and the simple kindness that had somehow transformed him. He realized then that true strength wasn't about the force of a blow, but the depth of concern. It resided in the impact one had on the world, no matter how small, how fleeting. Far away, in a quiet room, Leo slept peacefully. The bravery stone, clasped tightly in his small fist, emanated a gentle warmth, easing his breathing. His mother watched over him, her heart overflowing with gratitude. The persistent nightmare had vanished. He rested easily, guarded by a champion's heart, a champion's benevolence, and a tiny, unassuming stone representing something far more profound.